Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. We're ready to start now, inshallah. So, welcome. Thank you all for coming on time. So, just for those who don't know, we do this every week, Sacred Compass gatherings. It's a light gathering where we engage in some nasiha, some advice, some practical nasiha advice. And then we do a dhikr and just general socializing as well. So this is an open gathering, brothers and sisters, all ages. So you're all welcome. Thank you all for coming. So in terms of the nasiha and any guidance that's provided, one of the mindset that we should come to any sort of gathering of knowledge and benefit is that to truly benefit, we come with an open heart and an open mind. The best way to, well, one of the ways to analogize this is the Mashaykh used the analogy of an empty cup. If a cup is full, if you pour water into it, nothing's going to go in. It's just going to seep out. Or if his cup is empty, the water fills to the top. So that's the mindset we come in. If you've heard something before, we should imagine that we've never heard it before. We're hearing for the first time. And any guidance is directed to us alone. Sometimes we may have the attitude that, oh, so and so should be listening to this, but really to really truly benefit from any guidance and any nasiha is to direct it to ourselves and make it relevant to ourselves, inshallah. So and ultimately to maintain the presence of Allah, that Allah is with me, Allah is watching me, Allah is hearing me throughout the gathering and the dhikr later. So we will play a short. A brother will recite short verses of Quran and we'll play a short nasheed. The only purpose for this is to calm our senses, calm our minds, and to focus on the proceedings today, inshallah. So I invite this one.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وإن تبدوا ما في أنفسكم أو تخفوه يحاسبكم به الله فيغفر لمن يشاء ويعذب من يشاء والله على كل شيء قدير آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من ربه والمؤمنون كل آمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله لا نفرق بين أحد من رسله وقالوا سمعنا وأطعنا غفرانك ربنا وإليك المصير لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها لها ما كسبت وعليها ما اكتسبت ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين صدق الله العظيم.
صلاة سلام
على المصطفى رسول إمام بنور الصفا صلاة سلام على المصطفى رسول إمام بنور الصفا حبيب الإله أنار الحياة وقلبي يرى كمثل القمر بمدح الرسول يزيد الأمل ويأتي قبول بخير العمل صلاة سلام على المصطفى رسول الإمام بنور الصفا
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأصلي وأسلم على سيد الأولين والآخرين سيدنا ومولانا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا محمد النبي الأمي الأمين صلوات ربي وسلامه عليه وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين ومن دعا بدعوته واستنى بسنته واقتفى أثره إلى يوم الدين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم رب أعوذ بك من همزات الشياطين وأعوذ بك رب أن يحضرون تبرأت من حولي وقوتي واعتصمت بحول الله وقوته فلا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to our weekly gathering here in the first floor hub, where every Wednesday we gather to recall really the sunnah of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the guidance and the blueprint for success in this life and in the next. And from the sunnah of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he taught the companions is to always refresh their intention. And so we begin today, as we always do, with a refresh of our intention that we are here to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are here to reach His pleasure, to reach His closeness. And reaching the closeness of our friends and family or colleagues who happen to be here is merely incidental. But really that we are here just for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake. So we begin by asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allahumma ya Rabbil Alameen, ya Arhamar Rahimin, ya Akram al-Akrameen, ya Afdal al-Mutafaddilin, ya Rabbil Alameen. We ask you, ya Rabbil Alameen, for your pleasure and for your closeness, ya Rabbil Alameen. And you make us of those who hear the word and follow the best of it, ya Rabbil Alameen. Ya Rabbil Alameen, ya Arhamar Rahimin. You know best of our sacrifices to be here, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Sacrifices to our health and our wealth and to our time, Ya Rabbil Alameen. You alone know how much we have put in to come here today, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Every single person, Ya Rabbil Alameen. So, Ya Rabbil Alameen, you alone are a shakur, the appreciative, who rewards proportionately and even more than what is deserved, Ya Rabbil Alameen. And truly we are not deserving of anything but you, Ya Rabbil Alameen, out of your fadl and your karam, your grace and your bounty, Ya Rabbil Alameen, reward even though the act is deficient and there are many shortcomings, as all of our deeds and worship is, Ya Rabbil Alameen. So we ask you for your fadl and we ask you for your grace, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. As you all know, today marks an important event in the Islamic calendar, and that is the Islamic New Year. One thing which is observed today is that you won't find any Christians participating in any celebrations, be them religious actions such as this majlis and this ijtima', or any cultural celebrations which are practiced in our countries of origin. For a simple reason, and that is that they have their own religion and they have their own New Year, which they celebrate in their own way. But you won't see them lining the streets of Whitechapel, for example, yes, greeting people and welcoming in the new year and ushering in the new year for Muslims, or holding street parties or anything like that. Sikhs, Hindus, although sharing the language and some cultural practices of millions of Muslims, you won't find that they will celebrate the new Muslim year, the new Islamic year, with any Muslims. Yes, they may send some greetings, but not as a collective, really on an individual level. This is the same as the Jewish community, Jewish people who live in communities side by side with Muslims, such as in Stamford Hill, for example. Yes, but you won't see them side by side in celebration. Atheists who don't believe in any creator, yet despite that, enjoy the creation and the what is created for them very much. You won't see them either celebrating with Muslims their New Year. So what is the reason then that when the Christian New Year comes, our own people not only will join in the celebrations and the parties, but will even hold their own parties to welcome in the new Gregorian year? When the adhan is called in the mosque and it's heard out loud in Muslim countries and even some localities in the UK, such as over here, for example, in Whitechapel, some mosques have permission to sound the adhan before 7 p.m. You won't see a single Christian or Jew come to the masjid to observe the salah. But what is strange is that when the church bells ring, you do find Muslims going to take part in the worship. And that is either due to some part of their minds not working properly, or that there is in fact another religion that they harbor inside, or that there is this cocktail of religions and a form of corruption where one religion is mixed with the other. Now, Islam gives us freedom of will, and so we should know how to distinguish and differentiate between different faiths. Now, how is it then that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed Islam, which is the final, let's say it's the final version of all revealed religions, and has received the best teacher in the form of the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what is the reason that we see this very strange phenomenon? A person should never be a crowd following person. Just because this is what the people do, then I follow them. That sheep mentality is not acceptable. Yes, at the same time, we should be, we should live in harmony and peace, and and mix and mingle with people. But mixing and mingling with people doesn't mean that we mix and we mingle our faith with any other faith group, as they do not do with us. So one should think about this very seriously, because thinking about this, just starting today's bayan, today's discourse with this, should allow us to think very seriously about how we now welcome the Islamic New Year. Because if we don't think, and if we don't ponder over this point that we have raised, then we will continue to welcome all the other New Years. Jewish New Year will be coming. There'll be a Chinese New Year, and then we welcome every other New Year. And what's even worse is that we don't even know that we have an Islamic New Year. So this shows that we are either slaves, and bad slaves at that, because we're not showing loyalty to our Creator, nor are we even showing loyalty to the other masters or the other groups who have taken as masters, because we go from one celebration to another celebration. So where's the loyalty there? Yes, and we've become slaves of the thoughts and the patterns and behaviors of other people, and this doesn't befit the human being, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us free, and only worship and obedience and servitude is only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and nobody else. And so, as we said, or as we asked, what is the reason for this? So we said that there is either we've become slaves, and the other reason, in fact, the main reason, is that there is an identity crisis, a loss of identity. So when anyone comes along, then we follow, be it shaitan, be it another religion, be it bad company, be it, for example, cultural traditions, yes, that we just follow them without any awareness of our identity. What happens is that we can't make good decisions. If I don't know who I am, then I can't make a sound decision. We have to all realize our value. And that is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always value us more than we value ourselves, because He made us from the most honorable of creation, and that is mankind. He said, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ, and we have indeed honored the children of Adam. And we have been honored by being from the ummah of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, who is the highest and the master of all creation. So just by virtue of being human, we are honored. And by extension, the fact that we are from the ummah of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, then we are honored in addition to that. So if you disrespect yourself, if you devalue yourself, you have to put up with those consequences. You have to bear those consequences. Now, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam gave guidance to the Sahaba for every facet of their life. He gave guidance for the Sahaba with regards to the highest affairs, how to enter Jannah, and the highest of worldly affairs, how to run a government, how to run a country. But he also, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, gave guidance on the most minutest of details, the most minute actions. So, for example, how to walk, how to talk, at what tone you speak in, what speed you talk at, and the most minute details such as where you place your foot depending on the place that you're in. So with the masjid, what foot you enter with and what foot you leave. In your home, the bar, all of these things. So from the guidance to the greatest objective, Jannah, to the guidance towards what we consider to be small and petty matters. But really, this point of, oh brother, it's just a small sunnah. Oh sister, it's just a small sunnah. Well, the thing is, if we can't even follow the small sunnah, how do we expect to follow the large sunnah then? And so, that said, do we think that the Sahaba did not receive guidance from the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam on how to welcome the new year, on how to welcome the new month? And so Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the Sahaba, they used to teach one another this dua and obviously this dua is taught. They used to teach one another based on the guidance of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, of course. In the authentic hadith reported by Imam al-Baghawi, the Rasul sallallahu the companions, when they welcomed the new year or any new month, they said in the hadith that they used to teach one another how to welcome the new month just as they taught one another the Quran. The analogy over there should not be taken lightly. The Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's word, that is guidance until the end of time. The final testament from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Within it, as Imam Ali radiallahu anhu, he said, within it is the news of those before you and the news of those who will come after you. It is guidance for everyone. It is light in the time. And the hadith of Sayyidina Ali, when he describes the Quran, is lengthy and profound. The Quran, they would teach one another, the Quran being the guidance and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's word and the constitution of this ummah. And in addition to that, or just as they taught the Quran, they would teach each other how to welcome the new year. And so, what is this? What is this dua? This dua contains 6 principles, 6 key principles. One and maybe another one as well we'll touch upon today, inshallah. These 6 key principles that Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, or the companions rather, it's their wording, but of course from the teaching of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, they would say, Allahumma adkhilhu alayna. Oh Allah, bring upon this new year, bring this new year upon us bil amni wal iman, in a state of security and belief, was silmi wal Islam, and in a state of silm. Silm is where you are tranquil and you impose no harm on anyone. Wal Islam, and submission. وَرِضْوَانٍ مِّنَ الرَّحْمَنِ, and pleasure from the All-Merciful. وَجِوَارٍ مِّنَ الشَّيْطَانِ, and protection, fortitude, yes, from the shaitan. And so, what is this first principle? The dua, the first thing is Allahumma, oh Allah. Meaning, the first thing that we should observe is an Allah-centric life. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the center of our lives. We call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the owner of ultimate power. So it is as though we're saying at the start of the year, oh Allah, I will begin this year doing whatever it is that you command me to do. Because I start in your name. I start by in my life circling around your command. Oh Allah. So whatever I do, I will seek your permission first, Ya Rabbal Alameen, before I do it. Now, so in order for us to understand that, imagine if you are the manager, the managing director of a company, and your staff, they act without permission. They act without consultation. They make decisions without ever passing them by you. How much would you be offended by that? Imagine you as the head of a household, your children make decisions without asking you, that have consequences on them and the family. Imagine a major purchase is made, let's say, and you have a joint account, you and your wife, and without consultation, one just makes a decision and buys something of great value, that is, of course. Imagine how offended you would be. Now, we're not talking about a spouse or a manager or a father or a mother over here. We're talking about the creator of the universe, Rabbul Alameen, doing things without passing them by him first, without seeking his permission first, Jalla Jalalu. And so obviously we might ask ourselves now, well, how do we ask permission from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not left us in error or in misguidance or without a guidebook. So the Quran, which lays out general principles, and the Sunnah, which is a manifestation and an embodiment of the Quran, with even the more specific principles and guidance and guidelines, they set out to provide a manual for everything we go through in our lives, from marriage to raising our children, to making a purchase, to any business dealings, to any dealings of, let's say, on a diplomatic level, everything in our lives, worship, commerce, government, everything, there is guidance for us in it. And so, however we spend our day, whether it be in the morning with our family, to go into work afterwards, we are to ask ourselves, Ya Rabbal Alameen, does this please you? Before I speak, I open my mouth and I say, before I speak, I pass it by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning, you come into the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you present the matter to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Will this please you? Is this in line with your divine guidance, Ya Rabbal Alameen? Because what happens What happens is when we don't do this? What happens when we don't present the matter to Allah? When we don't seek the permission from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? When we say permission, we don't mean that, we'll make a request and receive a divine response immediately, because the response is already there. The answer is already there. What happens when we don't do that? The worst case scenario is when we, instead of asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then really the end of this dua, right? This concerns the end of the dua, is something we do something that belittles ourselves, that unvalues ourselves, devalues ourselves, that is offensive to ourselves. We pass the matter by shaitan. And so at the end of the dua, وَجِوَارٍ مِّنَ الشَّيْطَانِ, and protection from the shaitan. And so what happens when we don't come into the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we don't pass the matter by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and seek His permission? What we're doing is we're seeking permission really from the shaitan. Because what happens is automatically, by not presenting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're presenting to the shaitan. And so the shaitan, when you open your mouth and you don't present the matter to Allah, the shaitan will say, don't hold your horses, swear. Don't restrain your tongue. Say, insult this person, say something, offend this person. Yes? Get your own back. Right? Defend your honor. And so such a person ends up living in the obedience of the shaitan. Because as we said, if we don't ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if we don't say, Ya Allah, or Allahumma, Ya O Allah, my Lord, before a matter, then really what we're doing actually is asking the shaitan and the nafs as well. So when we don't ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's like not having any objective in life, like no destination. If we, for example, if we put in a destination in a GPS, then there is a strong possibility of us reaching that destination. But we have to put the effort in. And so if we set an objective, then in this life, then there's a strong chance that we will reach it. It requires some effort. But what happens when we don't? If we are not living Allah-centric lives, what is the reality? What really happens? What really happens is like having a GPS, but not putting a destination in. And so it will show you where you are, but it won't tell you where to go. So you roam around, going from here to there, aimlessly, without any objective. And so this is the reality of many people's lives. Many people's lives, they don't set aims and objectives. They don't set a purpose for themselves. And so when you don't have a purpose, what happens is you wander around and really you're always looking for trouble. And so you fall out with your neighbor, you fall out with your spouse, you fall out with your children, with your brothers and sisters and your parents, your colleagues. This is how many people live, because they don't have a destination, or they haven't put a destination in, so there's no purpose. So this is also a lesson that we should be putting something into our navigation system. So the first thing that the dua in which the Sahaba taught us was, Allahumma adkhilhu alayna bil amn. Oh Allah, bring this year upon us with peace and security. Meaning that we should be striving to keep ourselves in a state of peace and security and safety. So it's as though the person is saying, when they are making this dua, Ya Rabbil Alameen, whatever evil exists anywhere, safeguard me from it. And Ya Rabbil Alameen, I will utilize all the abilities you've endowed me with to keep myself in a state of peace, and also I will strive to bring peace to others. As we have already mentioned, is peace, safety, that I will safeguard myself and I'll safeguard others as well. Because the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us that whatever we do to other people will be done to us. Ya ibn Adam, إذا لم تستحي فافعل ما شئت كما تدين تدان. O son of Adam, If you have no shame, then do what you like. Because whatever you do shall be done to you. So we are to think 100 times, 1,000 times before harming anyone. Because what is the reality? What is actually happening if we bring harm to somebody? If we bring discomfort to somebody? If we cause pain to somebody? What we are actually doing is we are pressing a button to start the divine system of retribution against ourselves. This is worse than pressing, the red button for the atomic bomb, right? But what normally happens is we think, we don't think anything of it. Nothing is happening to us. But really, if we cause harm, which is the opposite of safety and security and peace for others, any harm, any pain, any discomfort, any unease to another person, then what is really happening is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will use His system that He has created to then bring harm to us. Because the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, Man darra darrahu Allah. Whoever harms, well then Allah will harm him. It's not because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes harm or wills harm for anybody, but that person, what they have done is they have initiated that process, that system of divine retribution against themselves. So, if you are conscious of this, you should feel that, okay, if I harm this person, if I cause discomfort to this person, then what's really happening is I'm pressing this button, this launch button, this missile will leave its silo and it will find me and it will strike me. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will use any means to avenge the oppressed. Even if the oppressed, you've oppressed their feelings only. So we're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for safety and safety and safeguarding ourselves and others. Okay, how? That's the question, how? So we have a body. The body has organs, as we have spoken about before. 7 organs: the hands, the eyes, the ears, the tongue, the stomach, the feet, the private parts. Yes? So are we inflicting any harm with our bodies against ourselves or against others? That's really what we should be asking ourselves first and foremost. Am I using my eyes to cause harm to myself or others, or am I bringing peace? So how do the eyes cause us? How do the eyes cause us distress? How do the eyes harm us? Really, because whatever you look at, that's imprinted on you. And then either you try, and then what that does is that then initiates a process within you, a process of wishing to fulfill a certain desire. And then when it's not fulfilled, then there is distress, there is agony, and that's self-inflicted. And the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam described the gaze as a poisonous arrow from the shaitan. Why did he describe it as a poisonous arrow from shaitan? Because when the arrow strikes you, yes, and the tip has been dipped in poison, even when you remove the arrow, the poison is still inside. And so the solution then, unfortunately, people think the solution is, let me just get one last look. Oh, so tempting. I'll look let me just look one more time and then that's it, right? That's never the solution, because the medicine for poison is not more poison. So our eyes or our ears as well, are we bringing peace and are we safeguarding ourselves and others with our ears? Unfortunately, what the most of us do, we lend out our ears to others without any filter. And so we don't eat without a filter. Before we swallow food, before we've even chewed the food, before we've even lifted up the food, we think 100 times, is it hot? Is it cold? Is it has it gone off, or is it still okay to eat? Do I like it just from the smell alone? So many filters before we just swallow the food. And so our ears, they swallow as well, but what do they swallow? They swallow ghiba and namima. And we think, well, what are the filters? Because we can't exactly walk around with earplugs in all day. I try to sleep with earplugs, but it's dangerous because I can't hear my kids screaming. So it's good on one on one level, but on the other, obviously I won't be able to come to their help. So we don't have physical filters for our ears, but we have filters that the Quran and the Sunnah have prescribed for us. What is being said? Is it ghiba? Is it namima? Is it lying? Is it bad talk? If it is, then apply the filter. No, I'm not listening to this. Because unfortunately, what do? We take off all the filters and we let that poison in, because that's poison too. We let that poison in, and then the result is we have ill thoughts about other people. The result is we start to torture ourselves because we've heard about what other people have, their money and their children and this and that and their property. And then we feel in pain, we're suffering, we're in agony because, oh, I don't have that. But why didn't you just apply that filter to start with? And so when people don't pay attention to this, it's no wonder that families fall apart, that friendships fall apart, countries are divided, spouses don't listen to each other. Because what happens when you don't listen to divine guidance, you end up listening to shaitanic guidance. So what will the result then be? What do you expect? What do we expect if we don't listen to the divine guidance and listen to the shaitan's guidance? So similarly, the hands, which represent authority. Are we bringing peace to people and to ourselves with that authority, with that power? And really, a person should never think much of themselves, should never boast about their strength, because we should remind ourselves of our reality, that we're weak. And if we don't remember that, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has reminded us and has immortalized it for us, or eternalized it for us, which is وَخُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا. And man has been created weak. We're in a state of weakness, meaning that maybe I'm not even sick. I'm not sick. I go 2 nights without sleeping, that's it. I'm helpless. 2 nights without sleeping, an emaciated person can overpower me. Yes? So just one vitamin, if we have a deficiency in one vitamin, then there is a disorder in the body. So in reality, we need to know that, we really are weak. We really are weak. And so whatever little power that we have, we are to use it to bring peace, security for ourselves and to safeguard others. Yes? And one should fear the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants, out of the millions and millions of processes that are running in our body, which Allah controls every moment, yes, He can suspend and pause one of those processes. Then what? Then there is a cascade effect afterwards. Just one little process. So similarly, the other organs, the stomach, by not eating, not consuming the rights and the properties of others, the private parts, that if the door of nikah is open, then why open the door of zina? The feet also, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the ability to travel and to endeavor, to leave a bad place and to go to a good place. What do your feet represent also? Your ability to leave bad company and to enter good company. The mind also, to think positively. The first thing it should be thinking positively about is thinking positively about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes? To think deeply about itself and its reality. So when there is this safety and security, then this is like an antivirus that's now in operation. It's now working. And this is what tazkiyah does. Oh, why do people live such miserable lives? Why are people so depressed? Why do I not feel peace? Well, because you yourself have not brought peace to your body, to your mind, to your heart. But if you did, then you wouldn't be bothered. People come, people go, people are rich, people are poor, people hurt you, people benefit you. No, your connection is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your heart is at, how is the heart at peace? What's a peaceful heart? The heart that is at peace with the command of Allah. Oh, why did Allah command this? Why did the Prophet ﷺ command that? That's a heart that is always in strife, never at peace, in agony. Having peace in the heart is also achieved by having empathy. And this is what we'll finish with, inshallah. With empathy, meaning having feelings for others. Selfishness is that we don't care about others. That we, for example, eat and we don't care whether our neighbor has eaten. Yes? But in reality, the human being can never be truly happy, which is what we're speaking about over here, peace and security for oneself and for others, until everyone around us is well-fed and satiated. The Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, he is not a believer, meaning he's not a proper believer, he's not a complete believer, whose neighbor sleeps hungry while he sleeps with a full belly. Yes, we're to be thankful, of course, for what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. But at the same time, we should be concerned. We should be concerned about others. But if you just enjoy your blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you, and it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you don't think about anyone else, then it's a very, very shaitanic trait. That you don't think about the well-being and the benefit and the safeguarding and the peace and security for others. Worse even than that. What's even worse than that is when you, let's say you go out to eat and then you post a picture of your food to people who can't eat that food. People who don't have access to it. People who can't afford it. That you post a picture of your new shoes or your new car or your new house or even your new bathroom. And there are people who live in overcrowded, derelict properties. This only adds to their agony. And the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, just so we realize the extent to which the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us that we should bring peace to other people, even their feelings. That if the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that if one of you is returning home and he has with him food that people in his locality, his neighborhood, his neighbors, let's say, don't have that food. They can't afford that food. Yes? Then he should hide it. He should conceal it. So either you share with people, and that's what's better, of course, or you should exercise and observe, some shyness. Feel embarrassed that I'm walking around with this food, I've got this takeaway, or I've got this whatever, this fancy food, right? And the people, my neighbors, they can't afford that food. I remember seeing it with my own eyes. I don't want to say where, okay, where people, the man returns home and he's carrying food in his hands, and kebab and this and that, and the neighbors, they can't afford that, and everyone is looking, and he's happy, and then afterwards said, wallahi, everyone was looking at me, and that I've got this and that. What have you done? Not only have you brought pain to other people, you've also invited envy onto you. You've made enemies. Why are you making enemies? Who would do that? Who would self-harm like that? And so this is security and bringing peace to people. Yes? And empathy. What's empathy? Empathy is not sympathy. Empathy is that you yourself feel, you try at least to feel what the other person is feeling. Sympathy is that you feel sorry for somebody. That's okay. But empathy is feeling what that person is going through, because that will motivate you to do something about it. Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, the meaning of the hadith is that, You know, Allah, you love so many different types of people, so many categories. But who do you love most? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Musa alayhi salam is Kalimullah. I mean, he used to speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah would speak to him. Like we're speaking now, not literally the same, obviously, okay? But just as we can converse, Musa alayhi salam used to converse with his Lord Jalla Jalaluhu. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said to him, the one who I love most from among all the categories of people, of the righteous, is the one whom if another is pricked by a thorn in his foot, he feels the pain of that thorn prick. So this is what the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam taught the companions, and this is what the companions, their guidance was passed on to us, that we are to start this year in such a mindset, with such a mindset, that we ask Allah that we enter this new year in a state of peace, of security, of safety. And that is only it. And then what happens after that? Because everybody wants to change the world. Everybody wants to make the world a better place. But we are a world within ourselves. So how can you change the world for the better when you have not changed your own little world? The earth, we are but part of it. This body which we spoke about, its 7 organs, what's the body? The body is earth. So people want to liberate the earth, liberate it from this, the invaders, and the kuffar, and blah, blah, blah. Have you liberated your own earth? You are earth. You, 6 foot, whatever. You're made of earth. Have you liberated your earth from the shaitan and from the evil desires of the nafs? You want to spread peace and safety, but have you brought peace and safety to your earth, to your body? Yes? You want to make people feel good, but what have you done to bring peace and security and safety to your mind, to your heart, to your nafs? Yes? Because what will happen, this is what we want. What we want is to achieve that peace, to achieve that security within ourselves, and then the natural response is to spread that to other people. Because once you enjoy something, right, you want everybody else to enjoy it too. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring upon us this new year in a state of iman, in a state of security and iman. And we should really, and inshallah, this is one principle from the 6. Inshallah, we'll be covering some others if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills. But we should be making this dua today and for the next 10 days at least as well, inshallah, in order to enter this year with such a mindset that first, my life is Allah-centric, and I want peace for myself and for others. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allahumma adkhilhu alayna bil-amni wal-iman wal-silmi wal-islam ورضوان من الرحمن وجوار من الشيطان وصلى اللهم وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So inshallah, we have time now for questions. So please do feel free to ask any questions you might have. Inshallah. And please try not to ask fiqhi questions. Yes, they can be for another time, but if they can be related to the topic or loosely surrounding the topic. No. Yes.
You mentioned if you don't ask permission from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're asking shaitan and the nafs as well. Can you elaborate?
You see, the nafs always wants. The nafs has no intellect, it has no mind, right? So the nafs always wants and cannot be blamed. Because it has no intellect, for example, if somebody commits a crime, but they are diminished in their capacity, their intellectual capacity, so they have diminished responsibility, right? In court, if the judge deems after expert advice or expert opinion that this person has diminished capacity, therefore they have diminished responsibility, so that person isn't held responsible. A child as well. Let's say a child commits a crime. In America, was it a 5-year-old, 6-year-old shot his teacher? Yes. Okay. Now who's in trouble? His parents. Yes. The nafs is like the child. The child just wants. The child just has desires. But the child wants to fulfill those desires, not caring whether it's from a legitimate source or illegitimate source. The nafs is the same thing, right? The nafs is the same thing. So when we don't pass the matter, when we don't present the matter to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and present it to the nafs, what that means is then we obey the nafs, which is just desire after desire after desire. And then what happens if you give, let's say you spoil a child, well, that's the result. You give a child everything the child wants, right? Then what happens? You embolden that child, right? And then that child will end up telling you to shut up, right? Your own, right? You watch those like, what was it called again? Super Nanny and all of those. Super Nanny, right? So you'll get one of those poor mums saying, oh, I don't know what, I don't know how he's become like this. Because you let him get like that. Because when your son first started, let's say, acting in a belligerent manner and being rude, you didn't nip it in the bud. So you left them until you emboldened them against you. And the nafs is like that. But you can't blame the kid. You can't blame the nafs either. So that's what happens when you. So who is responsible? We're responsible. The nafs is not responsible. When people say, "Oh, akhi, my nafs," no, akhi, you're in charge. It's like a parent saying, "Oh, my toddler." Your toddler, your child, your infant barely has any, mental reasoning and rational thought. So it's you're responsible, right? So meaning when we said that when we don't present a matter to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're automatically presenting it to the shaitan. The shaitan in turn then says to us, okay, obey your nafs. Because the nafs already has those desires. The shaitan will say to you, yeah, that's good, right? So, but when we present the matter to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's again passing it through that filter. Of, is this allowed? Is this not allowed? Is this advisable? Is this discouraged? Etc. Does that make sense? Yes? No. Yes, do we have a question from the sister side? Yes. Wa alaikum assalam.
Just in terms of like practical day-to-day things about passing through filter.
Sorry, I know the music is really loud next door. You can't. No one's blaming you. Passing by the filter of Allah, yes, and then.
Yeah, it's with like speech and getting caught up in conversation.
All right. Sorry, what's the question? Oh, advise. Oh, yes, advise. See, the tongue is the most dangerous organ. When the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he gave advice to Sayyiduna Mu'adh ibn Jabal. He gave him lots of advice on the tenets of faith and the pillars of Islam and the highest thing, the greatest thing in the deen. Then the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to him, because the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's considerate that if, let's say, I give you too much advice, right, you end up forgetting not just some of it, you end up forgetting all of it, and you forget the sequence as well, right? But not that Sayyidina Mu'adh would forget, but for other people afterwards. So the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to him, shall I not inform you of basically what will sum this all up for you? So he said, yes, O Messenger of Allah. He said, Amsik alayka hada. Hold this, restrain this, your tongue. So he said, O Messenger of Allah, are we accountable for what our tongues produce? And so the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, and are the people not cast into the fire on their faces on the day of judgment, except due to the harvests of their tongue? Because think about it, if you list the sins, the scholars have listed the sins of the tongue and the sins of the other organs. The sins of the tongue are not only the most numerous, okay, but they're also the most grave. Number one, disbelief. You see, your eye can't disbelieve, your tongue can disbelieve. Your hands can't disbelieve. They can act upon disbelief, but they don't. Their hands don't disbelieve, and the same goes for the rest of your organs. But the tongue can disbelieve. Your tongue lies. Your tongue can deceive. Your tongue can cheat. Yes, your tongue can incite and incite hatred and conspire against people and incite violence. So many sins of the tongue. You're with the tongue. How powerful is it? With the tongue, one statement you become a Muslim. One statement you leave Islam. One statement you're married. One statement you're divorced. One statement you've bought a property. One statement you've sold a property. One statement you have gifted property. One statement you've accepted it. So many functions of the tongue. And so how can we just unleash it and just leave it like that? Yes? Because with one statement, you can, as we said, you can, not only can you, all right, you enter into marriage or you leave marriage, but you can break up a marriage with one statement, right? You can backbite people. And the sins, we're not going to list all of the sins of the tongue. And so really the person should be conscious of the power of this organ. Imagine you have a gun. Now, if you thought maybe like that child in America might have thought, and we give the boy the benefit of the doubt, that it's like a toy. You press it, a little laser light comes out, it makes a little sound effect, right? If you think it's a toy, then what will happen? You'll end up harming others or yourself. So really you need to think about what is the power, what is the danger of the organ that you have. Because every organ is like a weapon. Every organ is like a weapon. Yes? Or like a sword, a knife. You can, more fizzy drink. Okay. Right. So it's sugar-free though, alhamdulillah. So, a knife you can butcher with, you can you can prepare food and feed the poor and the hungry, whatever, chop down trees if it's an axe, or you can kill people. So really the organs are like that as well. So one should be conscious of the power of that organ and the danger that that organ can cause. And also to be conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the thing is, you don't need to be a shaykh to know that lying is haram. You don't need to be a scholar to know that backbiting is haram. You don't need to be an imam of a masjid, yes, to know that gossiping is haram. You don't need to know those things. We all know them already, yes? So, but that knowledge is one thing and the application is another. And that's what this course of tazkiyah and purification teaches. That how do we take what we know, what we've installed into our conscious mind, and then, or what we've downloaded, if you like, into our conscious mind, and then install it into our subconscious mind. That, okay, I know that lying is haram, but I still lie. So how do I transfer that knowledge into practice? Yes, through the process of repetition, that you do it over and over and over again until it becomes installed. And how do I remove a bad trait from my character, from my subconscious, okay, my subconscious mind, also that I restrain myself over and over again until it's gone, until I feel no urge to do it. Okay, I backbite, I gossip a lot. So what happens when I sit with people and they start to gossip? I have to restrain myself. But how can I restrain myself if I put myself in that environment all the time? A drug addict can never come off drugs if he keeps going with his druggy friends. Very simple. But we say, oh, no, they're my boys. No, I can't not sit with my friends. Yeah, but on the day of judgment, and this is really, and we'll conclude with this inshallah, on the day of judgment, no one will say, where my boys at? No one is going to say that. I don't know what the equivalent is for women, right? Where my gals at, right? Okay, no one is going to say that. There's no loyalty on the day of judgment. Everyone will say nafsi, nafsi. Apart from the prophets, and the sahaba, and the tabi'een, and the awliya, and the salihin, and the martyrs. These are the people who look out for others. So you should look for them in the dunya then, if you want them to look out for you, right? And so if we want to come off this sin, like you want to come off a drug, then you leave that environment until you reach a stage where you're powerful, you're strong enough to be in that environment without it influencing you. Yes, obviously for short bouts, short periods of time as well. Not you don't just dive straight in. No, that's not like that. Because no matter how powerful we are, we're still susceptible to the whispers of shaitan and to the whims of the nafs. So we'll conclude there, inshallah, and move on to our next and last section, which is the group dhikr. And as we've previously mentioned, First of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us to remember him, not sometimes, not every now and then, not just morning and evening, but all the time. And he said, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ ذِكْرًا كَثِيرًا وَسَبِّحُوهُ بُكْرَةً وَأَصِيلًا. Oh, you have believed, remember Allah with much remembrance and glorify him in the mornings and the evenings. But the morning and the evening is really like a prompt, if you like. It's a prompt. What happens in the morning? The first thing you remember is, I got to have my morning coffee. I've got to do my morning ablutions, my morning routine. What? That prompts you that this is your day. Well, really, what's the dhikr in the morning? Does it mean that you just do tasbih in the morning, just do tasbih in the evening? No, it's a prompt. That's how I start my day. It's a prompt in the evening. This is how I spend my evening, in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and in the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what it really means. It doesn't mean to confine the dhikr to morning and the evening. Yes? Or else it would go against the first command, which is to remember Allah with much remembrance. Yes? And if you don't remember Allah all the time, then glorify him in the morning and the evening, and that will lead you to remember him in abundance. And so this dhikr is a prescribed dhikr, a non-prescribed dhikr, meaning that it's open, it's free, because dhikr can be done in all forms, all states, while you're standing, sat down, and lying down, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he described the people of true intellect and understanding, that الَّذِينَ يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ قِيَامًا وَقُعُودًا وَعَلَى جُنُوبِهِمْ, those who remember Allah standing, sat down, and on their sides. So you should remember Allah all the times, and in all states with all people as well, as in with the believers. So the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he passed by a group of companions who had gathered to do dhikr. And gathering to do dhikr can only imply one thing, that it's done in unison, either following one person and repeating after them, or that everyone is doing it together at the same time, the same dhikr, and out loud. And so he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what has brought you together? What has gathered you? They said, O Messenger of Allah, nothing has gathered. We've gathered here in order to remember Allah and to thank him for his blessings. He said, has nothing else gathered you, brought you together? They said, O Messenger of Allah, there's no other reason for us being together. So he said, I'm not asking you out of accusation. I'm merely asking you because Allah and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala above seven heavens, he boasts to his angels about what you're doing now. Imagine that. Can you imagine that? Right? Imagine, the head of state boasts to his ministers about, let's say, a small little tiny project that you did in your community, and then you hear that they boasted about you. Boasted, not just mentioned, you boasted. يُبَاهِي بِكُمْ مَلَائِكَةً. So we're here, this next section, inshallah, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to boast to his angels about what we're doing, inshallah. So I'll pass on to our brother Abdullah, who mentioned a few of the etiquettes and mindsets before we begin, inshallah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Just to remind or introduce to those who are not familiar, some of the etiquettes and mindsets of the group dhikr is to one, it's a loud dhikr, so follow the lead, not so loud that your sound, your volume is above the lead. Secondly, if you're unfamiliar or want translations or transliterations of the adhkar, PDF will be shared. So we don't do the whole, we don't get time to do the whole list of adhkar there, but we select a few of them. So as you become more familiar. And the mindset is that we often find ourselves wandering, our thoughts wandering, So it's to Mashaykh give us the three keys, is to remind ourselves throughout the process, even not just the dhikr, but throughout the day, throughout any amal or any act and activity, that Allah is with me, watching me and hearing me. You can also use the imagination. Imagine the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and light emanating and striking our hearts in this gathering, just to maintain focus that we do not only for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to attain a level of closeness. The lights will be turned off. This is only for concentration. And this light will be turned off as well. Yeah. Is the reverb on? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا. مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم محمد سيد الكونين والثقلين والفريقين من عرب ومن عجم هو الحبيب الذي ترجى شفاعته لكل هول من الأهوال مقتحم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم فاعلم أنه لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله فاعلم أنه لا إله إلا الله 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 Allah الله 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 أنت المولى أنت الحق ليس المولى إلا هو الله 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 أنت الهادي أنت الحق ليس الهادي إلا هو الله 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 حسبي ربي ما في قلبي غير الله حسبي ربي جل الله ما في قلبي غير الله نوري محمد صلى الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله 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 أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه وهو الغفور الودود ذو العرش المجيد وهو الغفور الودود ذو العرش المجيد ذو الجلال والإكرام ذو الجلال والإكرام ذو الجلال والإكرام اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم اللهم صل على وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم. اللهم آمين. يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك ولعظيم سلطانك. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله بحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما. اللهم يا ربي بجاه سيدنا محمد بن عبد الله صلى الله عليه وسلم اجمع بيننا وبين سيدنا محمد بن عبد الله في الدنيا قبل الآخرة، في الدنيا قبل الآخرة، في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم اغفر لنا واختر لنا، اللهم أجرنا من النار يا أرحم الراحمين. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. Ya Allah, Ya Arhamar Rahimin, Allah accept this gathering of dhikr and nasiha from us, Ya Arhamar Rahim. Allah, allow us to internalize the guidance and advice, Ya Arhamar Rahim. Allah, open our hearts to your mercy and your guidance, Ya Arhamar Rahim. Allah, keep us upon it and allow us to be a means for others to attain your pleasure and guidance, Ya Arhamar Rahim. Allah, have mercy upon us, our families, our children, our spouses, our parents, our siblings and extended family, Arhamar Rahim, Allah. Allah, anybody on the path of misguidance, bring them back on the path of guidance, Allah. Always keep us up on the path of guidance, Ya Arhamar Rahim, Allah. Allah, as we start this new year, allow us to renew our covenant to you, Arhamar Rahim, Allah, that we obey you, we obey your commands, and we prefer your way and the way of your beloved Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam above all else, especially ourselves, Ya Arhamar Rahim, Allah. Forgive us for all the times that we have hurt anyone, Allah. Allah, those who we have hurt, we have abused, we have wronged, Allah. Give them more than you have given us, Ya Rahman, Allah. Allah. If we have any relationships that have soured, Allah, allow a way of reconciliation, Ya Rahman, Allah. Ya Akram al-Akramin. Allah, allow us to start this year in the best of manner, pleasing to you, Ya Arhamar Rahimin, Allah. Allah, bless and forgive us, everyone here, and all those who could not make it, those who have joined online, and those who intend to come but for whatever reason are not able to, Ya Rahman, Allah. Allah bless and guide us and forgive us all. Subhanallah. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Salamun ala al-mursalin. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. So as Imam Shaykh Muhammad has mentioned, some practical advice on how to enact some of the nasiha. So for those of you who don't know and who have not started the path of purification, this is something that we teach at this center for free. There's no cost. The only cost is your nafs, quote unquote. But anyway, we do something that we do here. If anybody is interested, purification. Everybody else enjoy the snacks. We have about half an hour or so before we need to vacate. So please enjoy yourselves and I'll see you next week, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Are you going right?
You got 10 minutes.
Yeah, we are going to pray Maghrib, but some of them. Left side. Left pass. Straight, the bathroom on the left. What you say, man? What's sorry, man?
I came by myself, man. She's not pregnant.
She's pregnant?
No, she's not pregnant, man. She's not pregnant.
Yeah?
Yo, what's going on in what's this thing happening? Picnic or some retreat or something?
Oh no, we're just going to go Thetford Park, man. It's for a barbecue, man.
Yo, when you feel like, why don't you go beach, man? Why don't you see the sea, man?
You know why? You know why?
Yo, why don't you go to Canterbury? You know, there are lots of Christian awliya buried there. You know that? before the Prophet's time.
Are they?
No, this we are buried there.
We got there one day. We
No,
got
this
there.
Christian. Have you been to Canton?
I don't think I.
You should
Kent,
go
innit?
there.
It's Kent, right?
Eh?
It's in
It's
Kent,
in
right?
Kent. You should go. It's very,
Oh, we'll go for a day trip.
And there's loads of Christians who were there before
Islam.
Islam. So maybe they're maybe
Who
man,
knows,
maybe,
man? Who
maybe,
knows?
maybe man, maybe
Who
they're
knows?
blessed, man. I don't know.
Eat some of this, man.
No, you, man, you.
Inshallah.
I'll see you later.
Inshallah. Take care. Alhamdulillah. Take care. You good?
Yeah.
Help yourself. Help yourself. Take care. How's your boy Michael? How's his Ukrainian friend?
Yeah, he's actually still dating. I'm telling you, I had a dream about it.
Is he Muslim?
No, I introduced him to Hassan.
Huh?
I introduced him to Hassan in my dream.
Get it interpreted. Ask Harun about it.
Harun said it means easy. Try to introduce him slowly. Slowly.
So no, take it slow, innit? It's better. I've had an inkling about him as well.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. Take it. See you
I'll
soon.
get you contract this week.
Okay, yeah.
Tony's working on
Do you want the email? Or you can send over email?
Yeah, send, what's your...
I'll meet him.
Yeah,
Okay, sure. Take care. Huh? Yeah, first of all, yeah, sure. I think so. Across there, is
it through there?
see that black column there? The one, yeah, that's the kitchen on the left. One on the right, not the corner one. Not the corner toilet. Not the corner toilet.